This is one of the most visited cemeteries in the world, and Jim Morrison is only one of the reasons why. Hi, I'm Amy with Travel by Mike, and I want to recommend something that surprises almost every client I suggest it to. Père Lachaise Cemetery. Now, I know what you're thinking, but trust me on this one, because Père Lachaise is not just a cemetery, it's an open-air museum, a sculpture garden, and a who's who of the greatest artists, writers, and musicians who have ever lived. It is one of the most atmospheric and memorable experiences in Paris, and it's completely free to enter.
Père Lachaise, 110 acres in the east of Paris, over 70,000 graves, 3.5 million visitors every year, making it the most visited cemetery in the world, and the permanent address of some of the most extraordinary artists, musicians, writers, and thinkers who ever lived. I came here for one person, I stayed for all of them. Walking through these cobblestone paths under these ancient trees, you don't feel like a tourist. You feel like a guest, and every single corner turns up something that stops you completely. Père Lachaise sits on a hill in the east of Paris, and from certain spots within it, you can see the whole city spread out beyond its walls. But inside these walls, there's an entire world of extraordinary art. Sculptures that have been standing here for 150 years. Figures of grief and memory and love carved into stone. An open-air museum that most visitors walk straight past on their way to the famous graves. Do not make that mistake. Arman, a French-American artist born in Nice, died in New York, famous for taking objects completely apart, slicing them, accumulating them, destroying them to find the beauty inside, and on his grave, a bronze violin, cut in half because even in death he could not resist taking something apart to see what was inside. Dominique Vivant-Denon became the first director of the Louvre, transforming it from a royal palace into the greatest art museum in the world. Frédéric Chopin, the Polish composer who became the poet of the piano, dead at 39, he made one request before he died: remove my heart and take it home to Poland. His body is here in Paris, his heart is in a church in Warsaw. Michel Petrucciani, one of the greatest jazz pianists who ever lived. Born with bones so fragile he had to be carried to the piano as a child. His hands were so small that he could barely reach an octave. He played with Miles Davis. He filled concert halls across the world. He said music was the only place where he was not handicapped. He was 36 years old when he died. Héloïse and Abélard, one of the most extraordinary love stories in all of history. He was the most celebrated philosopher in the 12th century Paris. She was a brilliant student, considered the most educated woman in France. They fell completely in love, secretly married, and her furious uncle hired men to attack Abélard in the night. They spent the rest of their lives apart. He became a monk, she became a nun, communicating only through letters, extraordinary letters of love, grief, and longing that survive to this day. They died 22 years apart. She outlived him by 2 decades, running the convent he built for her. And when she died, she was placed beside him exactly as she asked. Père Lachaise united them here in 1817, together at last. Jim Morrison, the lead singer of The Doors, he moved to Paris in 1971 specifically to reinvent himself as a poet. He was 27 years old. He never left. He died in his bathtub in an apartment in La Marais and is buried here in Division 6. His body was never flown to America. There was no autopsy. French law did not require one at the time, and he was buried quietly in Paris just days after his death. His family was not even notified immediately. He was 27 years old. He was the 3rd member of what became known as the 27 Club that year, joining Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. 3 extraordinary artists, all gone at 27, all within the same year. There are almost always people gathered around this grave, leaving notes, leaving flowers, leaving something, because Jim Morrison still feels present in a way that's very hard to explain. La Mémoire Nécropolitaine, the memory of the necropolis. Inside this stone structure is a camera obscura, an optical device that projects a live image of the cemetery around it. The cemetery looking at itself, the living capturing the dead. I stood in front of it for a long time trying to decide if it was the most profound thing I've ever seen or the strangest. Théodore Géricault, French romantic painter, dead at 32, and on the front of his grave, a bronze recreation of his most famous painting, The Raft of the Medusa, 147 people adrift after a real shipwreck, a painting so politically explosive when it was unveiled in 1818 that caused a national scandal. He is lying on top of his own tomb with his palette in his hand, still painting, even here. Marcel Marceau, the greatest mime artist in history. What most people do not know that is during World War II, he used his skills to smuggle Jewish children out of Nazi-occupied France to safety in Switzerland. He kept them calm and quiet during the dangerous crossing. The man who made his entire career out of silence used that silence to save lives. A white marble woman standing full height next to the cobblestone path, hair flowing, looking directly at you. This is Violaine Vanoyeke, writer, Egyptologist, Latin scholar, Greek scholar, linguist, pianist, author of over 100 published books in 50 countries. She did not choose a cross or a stone or an angel for her grave. She chose herself, standing unapologetically, completely herself. And here's the extraordinary part. She is still alive. She had this grave built for herself in advance. She came here and looked at her own name in marble and decided, yes, that is exactly right. I cannot think of a more Père Lachaise thing to do. And then this one caught my attention. A rusted iron chain wrapped around the base of a grave. In 19th century Paris, chains like this marked a family plot, keeping the family bound together even in death. Molière, the greatest playwright in French history, he died in 1673 on stage during a performance of his own play about being a hypochondriac. He finished the show first. The Catholic Church initially refused him a proper burial because actors were considered sinful. The king himself had to personally intervene. Even in death, Molière caused a scene, completely fitting. Stained glass inside a family mausoleum, the Famille Mathieu, even the private family crypts at Père Lachaise are extraordinary. This is what 19th century Paris thought death deserved. Beauty, light, color, even in the darkest places. Victoire Noir, a young journalist shot and killed in 1870 at the age of 21 by Prince Pierre Bonaparte during a political dispute. His grave is marked by one of the most extraordinary bronze sculptures in all of Paris. The artist, Jules Dalou, captured him exactly as he fell, hat beside him, coat open, life interrupted at its very moment. And then there's this tradition. Because of the way the sculpture was cast, there is a very particular anatomical detail that visitors have been touching for generations in hopes of good luck in love or fertility. We gently kissed our hand to his lips. We left the French kissing to the French. The result of a century and a half of touching is extraordinary. Every part of the sculpture that people touch is worn bright and golden, while the rest remains dark with age, strange and funny, and oddly moving all at the same time.
This place is beautiful. I could literally spend the entire day just looking at the tombs and the sculptures, and I came for Jim Morrison, but I'm glad I saw everything else.
Oscar Wilde, the Irish poet and playwright who wrote The Importance of Being Earnest and The Picture of Dorian Gray, exiled from Britain, died in Paris in 1900 in a small hotel room, broke, alone. He did not get the ending he deserved, but he got an extraordinary memorial. The grave features a massive Art Deco angel, and it's covered entirely in lipstick kisses, thousands of them, left by visitors from all over the world for over a century. They finally put a glass barrier around it to protect the stone. The kisses are now on the glass. Oscar Wilde would have absolutely loved that. And now Père Lachaise becomes something entirely different. This is a memorial to the deportees or Oranienburg-Sachsenhausen concentration camp. The emaciated figure you see was barely human when this was created, and the inscription reads, "Here rests an unknown person deported for labor, victim of betrayal and Nazi inhumanity." Auschwitz III, from 1941 to 1945, 30,000 deportees, 3,500 arrested in France, mostly Jewish. They died of hunger, cold, beatings, and exhaustion, or they were selected and exterminated in the gas chambers of Auschwitz. And at the bottom of the stone, 4 words, "We shall never forget." And right next to it, a memorial to the Jewish children murdered by the Nazis between 1942 and 1945. Wire figures, children, standing together, and the inscription beneath them reads, "Passerby, your memory is their only grave. They have no graves. This is all they have. Us, stopping, looking, remembering." This monument in Section 97, the area dedicated to collective memorials, and every single element of it was designed deliberately. The tall granite tower represents the stairs of death at the Mauthausen quarry, 186 steps. Prisoners were forced to climb them carrying granite blocks weighing 25 kilos or more. Many did not make it to the top. The granite used to build this very monument was brought from the same quarry. The stone itself is a witness. The bronze figure attached to the stone, created by sculptor Gerard Chopin, shows an emaciated prisoner carrying a heavy block up those stairs. He's barely upright, barely human, and the triangular base beneath the monument represents the triangles that prisoners were forced to wear in the camps to identify which group they belonged to. Every detail, every choice, every piece of stone, deliberate, intentional, so that you cannot look at this monument without understanding what exactly happened there. Flossenbürg and its 95 satellite camps, and inside this stone, an urn containing ashes collected from the crematorium at Flossenbürg, liberated by the 3rd American Army on April 23, 1945. The ashes are here in this cemetery in Paris so that they would not be forgotten, so that somewhere in the world there would be a place to come and say, "We remember." Gertrude Stein, the American writer who made Paris her home and her salon on the Rue de Fleuris, the center of the artistic universe in the 1920s. Picasso, Hemingway, Matisse, Fitzgerald, all came through her door. She coined the phrase, "the lost generation," to describe the American artist who came to Paris after World War I. She died here in 1946. Her partner of 39 years, Alice Toklas, is buried with her. Stein's name is on the front of the gravestone. Toklas is on the back. And we close with Edith Piaf, the little sparrow, the voice of France. Born on the streets of Paris in 1915, died in 1963 at just 47. Her grave in Division 97 is always covered in flowers. Always, no matter when you visit. Strangers leave them every single day for a woman who has been gone for over 60 years. She recorded La Vie en Rose in 1945, The Pink Life, a song about seeing the world through rose-colored glasses when you're completely in love. It became the sound of Paris itself, played in every cafe, every film, every moment that needs to feel unmistakably French. She did not just sing the song, she lived it through heartbreak and loss and addiction, grief, comeback after comeback. She is not really gone. She is in every French cafe, every old film, every time someone plays Non, je ne regrette rien, No, I regret nothing. And every time La Vie en Rose plays anywhere in the world, she's right there. She meant it completely. And Père Lachaise knew exactly where to put her, right here at the end of everything, where the flowers never stop coming.
Père Lachaise, Jim Morrison, Edith Piaf, Oscar Wilde, Chopin, all in one extraordinary place. Free, atmospheric, and completely unforgettable. If I can help you plan your Paris trip, drop a comment or reach out. I'm Amy, always the adventurer. Keep wandering, wanderlusters, and I'll see you on the flip side.